This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. We are here at Sharbot Lake, Belong Sharbot Lake, with none other than Chef Brad Long. Brad, how are you today?
I'm alive.
Now, how long have you been open at Sharbot Lake? We spoke to you way before your opening, but when did you actually open?
We were practicing about a year ago, and we're about a month away from our official opening, so almost a year.
All right. And how have things been? You're in the quiet season right now, because we're just coming into spring, right?
Yeah, winter's been quite, up and down. There's been busy days. Summer's really busy. It's obviously, it's a beautiful spot. And there's a highway on one side and a trail on the other that goes all the way from Kingston to Pembroke. So it's quite a lot of, on both sides, traffic. And then there's the beach and a bandstand and a lot of, local, community events and things nearby. So there's always something going on.
All right. How was your first summer, and how did the locals interpret the cuisine of Brad Long?
Interpret?
Yeah.
That was a tough one. I don't know how they interpreted it, other than, I guess, I think most actually have said really kind things. Everyone seems to like it. There's a few people that I'm not what was here for them.
Right, yes, that makes sense.
A lot of decades, this was more like just a diner and maybe a bit of a drinking hole. I'm not really sure. But we're not really that. So I do think every once in a while we do disappoint somebody because we don't have, a toasted Western and a blue. But we have things that sort of replace those things.
And with that in mind, how has the menu evolved since you first opened? What has worked and what hasn't? That's a little harder to answer because the way I was in construction for 17, 18 months, so I had enough market research one-on-one with people who are walking past. So I realized that, I guess two things. One, I wanted to try and fit in with the community as opposed to just being a destination. Yes.
Plus, I'm not so sure that's a good idea either, because I'm quite a ways away from most other places. So we are a destination in the summer because a lot of people come into this area. And then there are some people who travel to see us through the slower seasons. But really, it's important to me to connect with the people that live here. And I think that I did that by not making everything so, I don't know, what words. I mean, these are difficult words. Fine dining is not really, that's not a term that you would find a lot of people within the industry use because it's very vague. Yeah. And most places that have the word fine dining on their sign, they're not.
We both know that.
So, it's a bit weird to try and describe yourself. So I sort of, taking the thing that was trendy, 15 years ago, were gastropubs. And this was a diner for years. So I sort of tried to say this was just a gastro diner, meaning that the food was all fresh and it was all local and handmade and everything when you ordered it, but it's still recognizable. And I had to run some, I had bills to pay. So, and what I do, the ingredients cost more, the labor costs a bit more. So I had to put those prices on the menu, but I can do so by making sure that the portions are quite large. It's one of those things where I think the best word really is it's hospitality. The business I work in is hospitality, so I'm trying to be hospitable. And how's it changed over the time? I'm still doing a lot of what I did a year ago. Now is the time as we get into the spring and summer, I will probably be changing things just to tweak them into what I've learned. But it's I don't know. So, I like comfort food. I do, buttermilk fried chicken. I have done different seafood dishes. The lakes around here are known for their pickerel. Americans call it walleye. So I have pickerel on the menu. Obviously, I'm not allowed to fish and serve it, so it's probably from either Lake Erie or Lake
Right.
Winnipeg. But, it connects. There's a few other things, and I do a couple of my own dishes, St. Lawrence salad and things like that. I would say the food has gone over quite well. I'm not so sure that people are entirely, familiar with the idea of, okay, I'll say this. I'm not so sure they're familiar with people who actually care about the food and
Right,
service
fair enough, yes.
and what beverages you serve and how you serve them. There's a sense that we're being, I don't know, conservative or, I don't know, fancy. There's a simple word. And I don't really subscribe to that. I mean, it's meant to be respectful.
I hear you. I hear you. You mentioned service and labor there. I can remember one of your concerns originally was who you were going to employ way out here in Sharbot Lake. How has that gone down?
Good and bad. I mean, anyone that we've hired has worked out well. Anyone who's
Great.
stuck, anyone who actually wanted the job,
Yes, yeah.
have been great. But that's a very small number of people. This is a common statement in these days where, because of the pandemic and thing, a lot of people retired,
Yeah.
a lot of young people entering in the market, and I think it's going to take another year or so before people sort out what they do and don't want to do, and what they do and have to do to pay the bills. There's been sort of a weird gap there in how all this works. And it'll all come back together. So it's hard to find cooks, and I think that's one of those things that would sound like an insult to someone out here. Oh, I've cooked. And I'm like, no, you worked in a restaurant.
Right.
There's a huge difference between someone who builds a birdhouse and a carpenter, right? There's a whole difference between someone who's put a bunch of pre-made stuff in a deep fryer and thrown it in a basket and pumped it out to someone who actually cooks things from scratch. It's obviously something I'm quite passionate about. I've spent a lot of years learning and teaching others, and it's important. I think that it's valid for me to say that we're trying really hard to find somebody to actually teach this to.
I understand. Related to all of this, in popping into the restaurant, I noticed that it is a decidedly family affair.
Yeah. Well, I didn't start out to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I really wanted my wife, Cheryl, to enjoy the countryside, and we have, a farm and a barn and some chickens and dogs and things, and that wasn't to be. I mean, if she didn't work here and help me, I would be bereft in the kitchen. And then our daughter Hannah runs the front house and is the manager of the front house and service. And not only that work would be difficult to find someone else here who would have understood it if I had just explained it to them.
Yep.
So she, had worked in Toronto and had seen what we do, so understood it, but also her personality and her charm has sort of probably knocked all of my very sharp, nasty bits off and made people quite like the place. She's at least half the place. I might have started this and I might be the cook, but Hannah is probably the reason that people come back.
Super. I can imagine so. Yes. Now, looking forward to the warmer months. I think we're through the winter almost. What are you looking forward to most? Which kind of ingredients are you looking forward to getting on the menu in the coming months?
Well, that one's fun. Well, there's a gent down the road, Fenton Valley Farms, who grows all my lettuce, which out here there's not really a lot of shoulder season greenhousing or hoop houses or things like that. And so certainly by January this goes away, and I have to get it from where everyone else gets it from, like Salinas and Yuma, California and Arizona. This is a good time to say this. Wow, is that stuff from California and Arizona crap, utter crap compared to the stuff that is grown around here. So I'm looking forward for that to come back. And obviously because it's spring, you know, just starting out in spring, I am anxious to get to the stuff that's foraged. You know, there's a lot of ramps, you know, wild garlic leeks, finlads.
A perennial favorite of yours, yes.
Yeah, and mushrooms and things are plenty out here. I think the thing that's cultivated that I really am jonesing for is asparagus.
Asparagus,
I
yes.
love asparagus, and that grows well here. One of the things that grows really well here, I've said this before, is garlic. You know, it's one of those things where garlic is very often from China or whatever, or it's pre-processed, peeled, gassed. You do a lot of things to it. Here, you know, it comes out of the ground and it's dried. I can still get some this time of year, but it's hard because it's the soil. The soil's not depleted here because there's not that much of it, and it's all, you know, granite and soil. So you get a lot more base nutrients because it hasn't been depleted, but it's still hard to grow because there isn't a lot of topsoil.
Yes.
So wherever there is topsoil, you'll find they're very young farms. I come from Norfolk County. We've been farming that since the 1700s. Out here, there's patches of land that have never really been farmed. And so you get this, you get a terroir. I won't always use the word. You get a distinct sweetness and intensity of flavor in all of the produce out here. One of the problems out here, sort of preempt that question, it's because it's always, you know, what are the good things? The bad thing is something that I really feel strongly about, is that there are no abattoirs. And if you don't have abattoirs, which it's like, that's a bad word, right, to most people. Oh, I can't animals. And you're like, no, they process farm animals.
Yes.
And farm animals are incredibly integral to the entire cycle of life. You know, they aerate the soil, they fertilize the soil, they eat part of the pasture that is, it's the cycle, right? And without them, you have a struggle to actually farm. And so people out here can't have the animals because there's nothing to do with them. You can't take them anywhere unless you process them yourself. And most people won't do that with a large animal. So farming is actually a bit of a problem because of the lack of abattoirs.
So you have challenges finding local meat.
I have huge challenges finding local meat, especially pork. There's one beef farmer out here who has their own abattoir. And there are some sheep farmers, but I haven't got in with them yet because I'm in that cycle where, you know, now that they'll be lambing, now I need to start finding out what are they going to do, where are they going to process, will it be inspected? Because that's my other thing, is you can't just process an animal and I can't serve it.
Of course, yeah.
It has to be inspected by the CFIA, provincially or federally. So, you know, there's some hurdles, and the big hurdle is, it's a big hurdle because I can't just go out and build myself an abattoir.
Yeah, I hear you.
And I've obviously done some homework. I've spoken to the local economic development people, and there was to be an abattoir built, but there was some nefarious crap going on around that. People who were in the industry kiboshed it. They had the money, but they ended up having all kinds of political issues.
Well, the usual nonsense.
Yeah, and it's really sad because, you know, culinary tourism, community building, any kind of economics depends on that sort of full circle of resources and amenities to, well, all industries. And when you take that one big chunk out of the picture, a lot of it collapses around the entire cycle. It's just that.
Well, Brad Long, thank you very much for giving us a wonderful insight into your first year up in Sharbot Lake. And we're very happy for this place and this wonderful sunshine pouring in through the window today. We hope to catch up with you in the not too distant future. Thank you very much for your time today.
Cheers, Jamie. Thanks.